Raven helps K9 German Shepherd break through a huge tumor on his leg. Days later, something sad happens. In a quiet, rural town, people thought they had seen it all. But when a retired K9 German Shepherd, once a proud hero, was struck by a massive tumor on his leg, hope seemed lost. Then, from the skies, help came in the most unexpected form, a raven. What happened between this unlikely pair touched everyone who witnessed it. But just days later, something heartbreaking would change the story forever. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring you more inspiring stories of courage, loyalty, and unexpected friendship. Stay with us until the very end, because what happened between a bird of the wild and a dog of honor will leave you speechless. The sun was just beginning to rise over quiet fields of Cedar Valley, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. The small American town still slept, its streets empty, its silence broken only by the distant call of birds. On the edge of town, in a modest farmhouse with peeling white paint, lived Daniel Hayes, a retired police officer, and his loyal companion, a German shepherd named Rex. Rex was no ordinary dog. He had served as a K9 officer for nearly 8 years, tracking fugitives, rescuing lost children, and standing beside Daniel in moments of danger. In his prime, Rex had been fierce, agile, and relentless, the kind of dog criminals fear and officers trusted with their lives. But now age had slowed him. His once strong body carried the scars of service, and his deep brown eyes held the wisdom of years spent protecting others. Recently, though, Daniel had noticed something troubling. A swelling on Rex's right hind leg had grown larger by the day, forming a lump so pronounced that even Rex's thick coat couldn't hide it. At first, Daniel had hoped it was just a minor injury, maybe arthritis or a pulled muscle. But within weeks, it had become undeniable. A tumor, large and ugly, pressing against the skin and making it painful for Rex to walk. Daniel sat on the porch that morning, his hand resting gently on Rex's head as the dog lay at his feet. "You're still my hero, buddy," Daniel whispered, though his heart ached. He couldn't shake the feeling that his old partner's time was running out. As the breeze stirred the tall grass, a black figure swooped down from the sky. A raven, larger than most, landed on the fence post nearby. Its feathers glistened like polished obsidian, and its intelligent eyes locked onto Rex. Daniel frowned. Ravens weren't rare in Cedar Valley, but this one felt different. It didn't caw or flap nervously. It simply sat, watching. Rex lifted his head, ears twitching. For a moment, dog and bird stared at each other, an unspoken recognition passing between them. Then the raven hopped closer, perching on the porch railing just a few feet away. Daniel chuckled nervously. "Well, looks like you've got yourself an admirer, Rex." But Rex didn't growl or chase it away. Instead, he let out a low whine, shifting his weight uncomfortably as if inviting the raven closer. Over the next few days, the raven kept returning. At first in the mornings, then lingering until dusk, always perching near Rex. Daniel began to notice strange behaviors. The bird would bring small objects, twigs, shiny stones, even bits of food, and drop them near the shepherd. Rex, though weak, would nudge at them gently with his nose, as though acknowledging the gift. It was as if the raven sensed his pain and was trying, in its own way, to help. One afternoon, Daniel sat in the yard repairing an old fence when he heard a sudden commotion. Rex was lying in the grass, panting, his leg trembling with the effort of standing. The raven, perched nearby, let out a sharp, urgent caw and flew directly to Rex's side. With its beak, it pecked lightly at the tumor. Daniel leapt up, alarmed, ready to chase the bird away. But then he stopped. Instead of harming Rex, the raven's touch seemed deliberate, almost careful. Rex didn't yelp or resist. Instead, he closed his eyes, leaning slightly into Bird's presence, as if it somehow eased the pressure on his leg. The raven continued its strange ritual for several minutes before stepping back, its head cocked, as if satisfied with its work. Daniel stood frozen, unable to explain what he had just seen. It was absurd to think a bird could help a dog with cancer. Yet, something in Rex's eyes, a calm he hadn't seen in weeks, told him that whatever bond was forming between the two, it mattered. That night, Daniel lay awake in bed, his thoughts racing. He had taken Rex to the vet before, and the news had been grim. Surgery would be risky at his age, and even then, there were no guarantees. Daniel didn't want his best friend to suffer through pain for nothing. And yet, watching Rex with the Raven gave him a glimmer of hope, not for a cure, but for comfort, for companionship in his final days. The following morning, the Raven was there again. This time, Daniel noticed something extraordinary. As the bird approached, Rex struggled his feet, limping but determined. He took several steps across the yard, more than he had managed in days. The Raven hopped ahead of him, almost like it was guiding him, pausing to look back until Rex followed. It was as if the bird refused to let him surrender to his illness. Neighbors began to notice, too. Word spread through Cedar Valley about the strange friendship between the old police dog and the Raven. Some called it a miracle, others superstition. But for Daniel, it was something deeper. It was a reminder that loyalty and love could come from the most unexpected places. Yet, beneath the wonder of it all, Daniel couldn't ignore the shadow that loomed over them. The tumor was still growing, and no bird, no matter how loyal, could stop what was coming. One evening, as the sun set in fiery streaks of red and gold, Daniel sat with Rex on the porch. The Raven perched above them, silent, almost solemn. Daniel's hand trembled as he stroked his partner's fur. "I don't know how much time we have left," he whispered, "but I swear I'll make every moment count." Rex leaned into him, his breathing heavy but steady. The Raven gave a low, mournful cry that echoed across the fields. It sounded almost like a warning. And for the first time, Daniel wondered, was his bird here to save Rex, or to prepare them both for what was coming? The days in Cedar Valley grew warmer as spring turned into summer. Daniel began to notice a rhythm forming around his home. Mornings with the Raven perched on the porch, afternoons when Rex would limp through the fields with his unlikely companion close by, and evenings when all three of them sat watching the sun set in silence. It was almost as though life itself had slowed to honor the bond that was unfolding. But beneath the quiet beauty of those days, tension remained. The tumor on Rex's leg had grown heavier, a dark shadow against his once powerful frame. Daniel could see the toll it took, the way Rex's gait dragged, the tremors that sometimes shook him in his sleep, and the deep sighs he let out as though he were carrying a burden too great. Still, there was something strange happening. When the Raven was near, Rex seemed to fight harder against the pain. The bird cawed sharply whenever Rex tried to give up, nudging him to stand, to walk, to move forward. Daniel had begun calling the Raven Shadow, because it followed Rex so faithfully, never straying far from his side. One morning, Daniel decided to test just how strong Rex still was. He whistled softly, the same command he used in their police days. Rex's ears twitched, and though his body trembled, he pushed himself to stand. Daniel's heart swelled. The old command still lived within him. "Come on, boy," Daniel encouraged, his voice breaking with emotion. Just a few steps. Rex limped forward, his paw dragging slightly in the dirt. Shadow hopped ahead, wings outstretched, cawing loudly as though cheering him on. With each painful step, Rex's eyes stayed locked on the Raven, as if drawing strength from the bird's defiance. By the time Rex reached Daniel's outstretched arms, tears blurred the old officer's vision. He dropped to his knees, hugging Rex tightly. "You still got it," Daniel whispered. "You're still my hero." But the joy of that moment was short-lived. That afternoon, as Daniel prepared their dinner, Rex collapsed in the yard. The sound of his heavy body hitting the earth sent Daniel running outside in panic. Rex lay gasping, his chest heaving, his paw twitching weakly. "Rex!" Daniel shouted, dropping beside him. He stroked the shepherd's fur, fear clawing at his heart. Shadow swooped down immediately, landing near Rex's head, cawing distress. The bird pecked gently at the ground, as if trying to rouse him, refusing to let him slip away. For long minutes, Daniel thought it was the end, but slowly, Rex's breathing steadied. He lifted his head weakly, his eyes cloudy but alive. Shadow tilted its head, almost in relief, before flying up to the porch and returning with a small object, a silver coin it had stolen from somewhere. It dropped the coin beside Rex, as though offering him another reason to hold on. Daniel looked at the raven with disbelief. "What are you?" he muttered. "Why do you care so much?" That night, Daniel barely slept. He sat beside Rex, whispering stories of their old patrol days. The time they had caught a thief hiding in a barn. The night they had tracked a lost child to the woods until dawn. Rex's ears twitched to the sound of his voice, and Shadow perched outside the window, watching silently. The next day brought visitors. Word of the strange friendship had spread beyond Cedar Valley, and neighbors arrived, curious to see for themselves. Children giggled at the sight of the raven strutting proudly beside the limping shepherd. An elderly woman whispered that the bird must be an angel in disguise, sent to guide the dog to peace. Others scoffed, calling it nothing more than coincidence. But Daniel didn't care what they thought. He could feel it. The raven's presence mattered. It wasn't just coincidence. It was connection. Yet not everyone approved. At the diner in town, Daniel overheard men whispering, "That dog should be put down. It's cruel to let him suffer." Another voice added, "Birds like that bring bad luck anyway. He should chase it off." The words stabbed Daniel. He wanted to shout at them, to tell them they didn't understand. But deep down, their judgment mirrored the fear gnawing at his own heart. Was he selfish to keep Rex alive, clinging to every extra day? Was he blind to the suffering because he couldn't face losing his partner? That night, as Daniel sat on the porch, he spoke aloud, not sure he was talking to Rex or Shadow. "Tell me what to do. Am I helping him, or am I just holding on because I can't let go?" The raven tilted its head, its black eyes glinting in the moonlight. Rex, lying nearby, shifted closer and rested his head on Daniel's boot. The message was clear: they were still fighting. And as long as Rex fought, Daniel would too. But the fight grew harder with each passing day. The tumor began to rupture, swelling until it pressed against the skin in raw, painful ways. Rex winced with every step, though he never whined. Shadow grew louder, more insistent, cawing whenever Rex stumbled, flying in circles above him, as if refusing to let him collapse. One evening, as a storm rolled in, Daniel saw something he couldn't explain. Rex struggled to climb the porch steps, his body shaking with the effort. Shadow landed beside him, flapping its wings violently, almost shielding him from the rain. Rex let out a deep growl, not of anger, but of determination. With one final push, he climbed onto the porch, collapsing into Daniel's arms. Daniel hugged him tightly, rain soaking them both. He whispered, "You're still my warrior. Don't you dare give up now." The storm raged late into the night, thunder shaking the windows, lightning splitting the sky. Shadow remained outside, perched on the railing, its feathers slick with rain, but its eyes locked on Rex through the glass. Daniel knew, with an unshakable certainty, that the raven would not leave until the story ended, one way or another. And though Daniel tried to believe they still had time, a chilling thought haunted him. What if Shadow wasn't here to save Rex, but to guide him to his final rest? The storm had passed by morning, leaving Cedar Valley washed in silver dew and the smell of wet earth. Daniel rose early, his back aching from sleeping in the old armchair beside Rex. His loyal shepherd lay on a blanket near the fireplace, chest rising and falling in shallow rhythm. The tumor on his leg looked angrier than ever, swollen and red, where the skin stretched thin. Daniel crouched beside him, stroking his ears. "Another day, partner," he whispered, his throat tight. "We'll face it together." Outside, a sharp caw split the silence. Shadow, the raven, perched on the fence post, its feathers gleaming in the weak morning sun. The bird had endured the storm without shelter, and yet it looked untouched, stronger even, as though it had absorbed the wild energy of the night. When Rex heard the call, his ears twitched. With effort, he lifted his head and let out a faint bark, the sound hoarse but determined. Shadow swooped down immediately, landing on the porch rail and fixing its gaze on the shepherd. Daniel shook his head in disbelief. "You too," he muttered, half smiling. "It's like you speak a language all your own." The bond between dog and bird deepened with each passing day. Wherever Rex went, Shadow was there, nudging him forward, circling above him, or perching nearby as if standing guard. And whenever Rex seemed weakest, the raven grew loudest, cawing and flapping until the shepherd pushed himself to stand. One afternoon, Daniel led Rex out to the fields for a short walk. His limp was severe, every step a battle against the weight of the tumor. Daniel walked beside him, ready to lift him if he stumbled. But Shadow darted ahead, dropping small twigs in a line as if creating a path. Rex followed them, eyes focused, each step drawn by the bird's insistence. By the time they returned to the farmhouse, Daniel's chest swelled with pride. "Still a soldier," he said, kneeling to hug his partner. Rex's eyes glistened, tired but full of loyalty. Shadow let out a long, low call, as though echoing Daniel's words. But the progress came at a cost. That evening, Rex struggled to rise from his blanket. His muscles trembled, and his breathing rasped with effort. Daniel rushed to his side, helping him up, but the shepherd's legs buckled almost immediately. "Easy, boy," Daniel murmured, tears pricking his eyes. "Don't hurt yourself." Shadow fluttered on the floor beside them, pacing back and forth. It gave a series of sharp caws, almost impatient, as if ordering Rex to try again. Rex whined softly, his paw twitching. He wanted to obey. Daniel placed a hand on the raven's wing, surprising himself. "Not tonight, Shadow. He's given enough for one day." For the first time, the raven grew silent, tilting its head as if understanding. That night, Daniel dreamed the firehouse days, when Rex was young and unstoppable. He dreamed of the night they had caught a dangerous fugitive in the woods, Rex tackling the man with fearless strength. He woke to find tears on his face, and Shadow perched on the windowsill, watching him as though it had been guarding his sleep. The following morning brought visitors again. A group of children from town had come with their parents, hoping to see the miracle friendship between the dog and the raven. Daniel wasn't sure he liked the attention, but he couldn't deny the joy it brought Rex. The children knelt in the grass, giggling as Shadow strutted close, its feathers puffed proudly. Rex wagged his tail weakly, licking a little girl's hand. For a few minutes, the pain seemed forgotten. Daniel smiled, heart aching at the sight. One boy asked innocently, "Mister, will your dog get better?" The question hit Daniel like a blow. He swallowed hard, glancing at Rex, who panted softly, his eyes calm. "He's fighting," Daniel said gently. "And sometimes fighting is what matters most." The boy nodded solemnly, and Shadow gave a loud caw, as though sealing the statement with approval. But later that evening, when the visitors were gone, Daniel saw the truth. Rex's paw had begun to bleed, where the tumor pressed through the skin. The shepherd winced when he shifted, though he refused to cry out. Daniel pressed the cloth gently against it, his hands trembling. "I don't know how much more you can take," he whispered, his voice breaking. "And I don't know how to say goodbye." Shadow landed beside him, its head cocked. It pecked lightly at the cloth, then gave a single mournful cry. Daniel froze. It was the first time the bird's sound had felt less like encouragement and more like grief. That night, Daniel sat on the porch long after Rex had fallen asleep. Shadow perched beside him, silent. The stars above shimmered, cold and distant. Daniel spoke softly, as if confessing to the night itself. "I've been selfish," he said. "I keep asking him to fight, because I don't know who I am without him. He was my partner in every battle. He saved me more times than I can count. And now, I can't save him." Shadow shifted closer, brushing its wing lightly against Daniel's arm. The gesture startled him, but also comforted him. He realized then that the raven wasn't here to heal Rex or to prolong his days. It was here to guide them both through the hardest part, the part of letting go. The thought tore at Daniel's chest. Yet, as he glanced back to the window at Rex sleeping peacefully, he knew the time was drawing near. In the distance, thunder rumbled again, though no storm appeared. It felt like a warning, a reminder that the days ahead would not be easy. Daniel stood, his heart heavy. "If you're really here for him, Shadow," he whispered, "then help me do right by him. Help me be strong enough to let him go when it's time." The raven's black eyes glinted in the starlight. Then it let out a single soft caw, not sharp, not urgent, but gentle like a promise. And for the first time, Daniel felt that maybe he would not have to face the coming sorrow alone. The morning sun rose pale and weak, as if even the sky knew the heaviness in Daniel Hayes' heart. Inside the farmhouse, Rex struggled to push himself up from his blanket. His once mighty body trembled with the effort, the tumor on his leg swollen so large that it seemed to weigh down his very spirit. Daniel knelt beside him. "Easy, boy," he whispered, slipping his arms under Rex's chest to help him stand. Rex leaned into him, panting, but his eyes, those deep, loyal eyes, still burned with determination. A sharp call sounded from outside. Shadow had returned, perched on the porch railing, watching. The raven flapped its wings impatiently as if commanding Rex to keep fighting. Rex's ears twitched. He took one shaky step, then another toward the open door. Daniel felt tears prick his eyes. Even now, Rex was listening, not to pain, not to weakness, but to the call of his strange, feathered companion. They made it outside, the early breeze carrying the smell of fresh hay from a neighbor's field. Shadow swooped low, circling above them before landing in the grass. It pecked at the earth, then looked up at Rex with sharp caw. Daniel crouched down, speaking softly to the bird. "You won't let him give up, will you?" For a moment, the raven tilted its head, black eyes reflecting the light. Then it spread its wings wide, as though in defiance of the idea of surrender. The walk was short, but to Daniel it felt like a marathon. By the time Rex collapsed gently onto the grass, his chest heaving, sweat trickled down Daniel's forehead. He sank beside his partner, stroking his fur. "You've still got fire, buddy. I see it." But that fire was fading, and Daniel knew it. That evening, he called Dr. Simmons, the town's veterinarian. She had seen Rex before, had spoken gently but honestly about his condition. When she arrived, her face was kind but heavy with unspoken truths. She examined the tumor, checked Rex's breathing, and finally sat back on her heels. "Daniel," she said softly, "he's holding on for you, but he's in pain. We both know where this is heading." Daniel's throat tightened. He nodded but couldn't speak. He felt the weight of years pressing down, years of partnership, of trust, of moments where Rex had been the one to save lives. Now Daniel was faced with the impossible, to save his best friend by letting him go. As if sensing the tension, Shadow swooped down, landing on the porch railing near the vet. Its sharp eyes never left Rex. Dr. Simmons glanced at the bird, her brow furrowed. "That raven has been following him?" Daniel nodded. "Every day, like he knows what's happening." The vet shook her head slowly. "Animals have a way of understanding more than we give them credit for." After she left, Daniel sat with Rex in the fading light. Shadow hopped closer, resting just a few feet away. Daniel buried his face in his hands. "I don't know what to do. How do I choose the moment? How do I say goodbye?" Rex shifted his head onto Daniel's lap, sighing deeply. Shadow gave a low, mournful call, softer than its usual sharp caws. It was as if the bird shared the weight of the decision. That night, Daniel dreamed again. He was back on patrol, the sirens blaring, his heart racing. He remembered the night Rex had saved him, lunging at a man with a knife, giving Daniel the chance to disarm him. He remembered the times Rex had tracked missing children through endless woods, never faltering until the child was safe. Every image was sharp, vivid, and alive. He woke with tears streaking his cheeks, the sound of Shadow's call echoing faintly outside the window. The next day, Daniel made a choice. He wouldn't rush. He wouldn't take Rex to the clinic that moment. Instead, he would give him one last gift, a day of peace, a day to live as though the tumor didn't matter. He cooked Rex's favorite meal, chicken and rice, and watched with bittersweet joy as the shepherd ate eagerly, tail thumping weakly against the floor. He took him to the meadow behind the farmhouse, carrying him part of the way when his legs gave out. Shadow followed, gliding overhead like a black guardian. In the meadow, Daniel laid down an old blanket. He sat with Rex, stroking his fur, watching the dog's eyes brighten as the breeze carried familiar scents. Birds chirped in the distance, but only one voice stood out. Shadow's, echoing like both encouragement and lament. Neighbors stopped by quietly, leaving food at the gate or offering words of comfort. They knew what Daniel was preparing for. No one intruded. It was a sacred day, a farewell written in silence and love. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky gold and crimson, Rex raised his head. His eyes locked onto Shadow, who perched nearby. The raven cawed once, sharp and commanding, and with what seemed like every ounce of strength left in him, Rex pushed himself to stand. Daniel gasped, rushing to steady him, but Rex moved forward, step by step, toward the raven. Shadow hopped backward, leading him in a short, deliberate path across the meadow. The sight broke Daniel's heart and mended it all at once, his partner, still fighting, still following, even when his body screamed against it. At last, Rex collapsed gently into grass. Shadow landed beside him, pressing close as if refusing to leave him alone. Daniel knelt, tears streaming freely now. "I see it, boy," he whispered, voice trembling. "You've shown me. You're ready." The raven gave a long, mournful call, and Daniel understood. The moment was near. That night, as he carried Rex back into the farmhouse, Daniel's chest ached with grief. Shadow followed silently, watching from the windowsill. The hardest decision lay ahead, and Daniel knew tomorrow he would have to face it. But as Rex lay his head down and drifted into a deep, exhausted sleep, Daniel whispered into the darkness, "I promise, when it's time, I'll let you go with dignity. You've earned that, my hero." Shadow's eyes glinted in the moonlight. It gave a single soft caw, like a vow kept between them. The dawn of the next day arrived quietly, soft rays of light creeping through the curtains of Daniel Hayes' farmhouse. He had barely slept. His body ached from grief as much as fatigue. Yet he rose before the sun fully cleared the horizon. Today he knew would be different. Today he had to make the choice every dog owner dreads. The choice of love that feels like betrayal. Rex stirred on his blanket, lifting his head weakly when Daniel knelt beside him. His once powerful eyes were clouded but calm. He seemed to understand, as if he too felt the weight of the moment. Outside, a familiar voice broke the silence. Shadow's call echoed through the morning air. The raven was there, perched on the railing, waiting. Daniel couldn't shake the thought that the bird knew exactly what was coming. Daniel stroked Rex's fur gently. One more walk, partner. One last time. He carried Rex outside into the cool morning, laying him down in the grass of the meadow behind the house. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of wildflowers and damp soil. Shadow swooped low, circling them before landing nearby. The three of them, man, dog, bird, sat together in silence. Daniel had called Dr. Simmons the night before. She was due to arrive later that morning, bringing with her the mercy Daniel couldn't give alone. Until then, he wanted Rex to feel only love. He grilled a piece of chicken and fed it to Rex by hand. The shepherd wagged his tail faintly, savoring each bite as though it were the finest meal of his life. Daniel laughed softly through his tears. "You still eat like a king." Shadow hopped closer, dropping a shiny button it had found near the fence. Rex sniffed it weakly, then rested his head on Daniel's leg. Even now, the raven was offering him gifts, tokens of loyalty for a friend about to leave. As the sun climbed higher, Daniel spoke to Rex the way he had during their years of service. "Remember the night by the river? You tracked that boy for miles, even when the storm nearly drowned us both. You saved him, Rex. You saved me more times than I can count." His voice broke. "I wish I could save you now." Rex let out a faint whine and pressed his muzzle against Daniel's hand. The gesture was simple but spoke volumes. "You already did." The sound of a car pulling up broke the fragile moment. Dr. Simmons stepped out, her expression gentle but grave. Daniel's chest tightened. Shadow cawed loudly, flapping its wings, as though protesting the arrival. Dr. Simmons approached slowly, kneeling to pet Rex. "He's tired, Daniel. He's ready." Daniel's vision blurred. He nodded, unable to speak. His hands shook as he cradled Rex's head. "I've got you, boy. I'm right here." As the vet prepared, Shadow let out a deep, mournful cry, unlike any sound Daniel had ever heard from a raven. It echoed through the meadow like a funeral song. Even Dr. Simmons froze for a moment, shivering at the haunting sound. Then, with Daniel's arms wrapped around him, Rex took his final breath. His body stilled, his eyes closing softly, his face resting peacefully against his partner's chest. Daniel wept openly, clutching the shepherd who had once been unstoppable, who had once been his shield and sword. Now he was gone. Shadow remained silent, watching. After a long moment, it fluttered down beside them, resting its wing lightly against Rex's body. Daniel stared through his tears, a shiver running down his spine. It was as though the bird was paying respects, honoring a fallen warrior. Dr. Simmons whispered, "He passed knowing love. That's all any of us can hope for." Daniel buried Rex on the farm, under the large oak tree by the meadow where they had taken their final walk. He dug the earth with trembling hands, refusing any help. He laid Rex to rest with his old service badge and a leash they had used on their first patrol together. As he covered the grave, Shadow circled above, calling a steady rhythm, like a drumbeat marking the end of a soldier's watch. When the grave was sealed, the raven landed on the headstone Daniel had placed, a simple wooden cross. It stayed there, silent, until the sun dipped below the horizon. In the days that followed, Daniel felt the emptiness everywhere. The house was quiet, without Rex's paws tapping on the floor. Nights were harder. No shepherd curled at his feet. He would find himself reaching for the leash before remembering. Grief hung heavy, yet so did gratitude. And Shadow? The raven still came. Every morning, it perched on the oak tree above Rex's grave. Sometimes it brought trinkets, a feather, a piece of glass, a shiny pebble, leaving them on the soil as though continuing the ritual of gifts. Other times, it simply sat, its black silhouette watching over the resting place of the dog it had befriended. Daniel often joined it, sitting beneath the tree, speaking softly. "He was the best of us," he would say, "and you gave him strength when I couldn't." Over time, the pain softened into memory. Daniel began to see Shadow not as a mysterious omen, but as a reminder that even in suffering, there can be companionship. Even in endings, there can be dignity. One evening, months later, Daniel sat by the grave as the sun set. Shadow perched above, silent. He whispered, "Thank you for walking with him to the end, for walking with me, too." The raven gave a single soft caw, then spread its wings and soared into the twilight sky. Daniel watched until it disappeared beyond the horizon, his chest heavy but at peace. He turned back to the oak tree, to the grave beneath it. "Rest easy, Rex. You'll always be my hero." And though the meadow was quiet, Daniel felt something stir in the breeze, a presence, a loyalty that death could not break. Some bonds transcend species, time, even death itself. Rex's courage and Shadow's strained companionship remind us that love can come from the most unexpected places, and that true loyalty never leaves us. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share it with someone who believes in the power of loyalty, love, and resilience.